And it's Lucas Peilert. Welcome, Lucas.
All right, Lucas.
All right, thanks so much. Can everybody hear me?
No.
All right, maybe I'll do this. Does that work better?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, nice to meet you all. My name is Lucas Peilert. I'm the Director of Strategy for Siemens Mobility North America. Got some exciting things to talk about that we have in the works with implications for New York State. So let me figure out the clicker here. So for those who aren't familiar, Siemens has been making rail vehicles in the U.S. since 1985. We've grown quite a bit since then. We have 4,500 employees now across 8 different sites. Soon to be 9 sites. I'm going to talk about Horseheads in a few minutes. We supply light rail vehicles to a few dozen public transit agencies throughout the U.S., and we supply passenger rail, coaches, and locomotives to the 3 major intercity rail carriers in the U.S., Brightline, Via, and of course Amtrak. So just a little bit of our history with Amtrak. Siemens mostly built light rail vehicles in the U.S. until 2010 when we brought over an electric locomotive for the Northeast Corridor, the ACS 64s, which have operated for the last 15 years on the Northeast Corridor with a lot of success. In the mid-2010s, we developed the Charger diesel-electric locomotive, which is operating in a few different state-supported services. And we later brought the Venture passenger coaches to a couple of those services as well in the Midwest and in California. And then a few years ago, we developed a version of the Charger locomotive for long-distance services. And then most recently, we've been working on the Arrows, which I think are kind of a centerpiece of Amtrak's fleet modernization. Now it's skipping. There we go. So in 2022, we announced an order for 83 Arrow sets with options for over 100 additional train sets. This is going to allow Amtrak to have a single fleet of vehicles that can serve the Northeast Corridor and state-supported services. These will be 6- and 8-car train sets that can travel up to 125 miles per hour. So all the sets will be able to go up to 125 miles per hour. These will be deployed like the folks from the state were talking about this morning, on the Empire Corridor, on the Adirondack, and other services in New York, which I'm sure everybody here is pretty excited about. So it's a unique propulsion layout. So all of the Arrow train sets will have a diesel locomotive and the cab cars. The cab car is shown here to allow for bidirectional operation. And then the Arrows will also have what we call an APV, a coach that follows the locomotive that either has a pantograph or it will have a battery from the Empire service. So that alternative propulsion vehicle will allow them to operate on the Northeast Corridor under catenary on full electric and then travel through to Virginia and North Carolina or up to Connecticut and Massachusetts without requiring a locomotive switch. So the diesel engine can just be turned on and much simpler in terms of yard operations, much simpler in terms of the passenger experience. Obviously, we hope it allows Amtrak to take quite a bit of time out of the schedule. And the train sets for the Empire Corridor will have a battery car in that second position behind the locomotive, and that will allow them to operate on battery power down into the Empire Connection tunnel and through into Penn Station, where diesel operation is not allowed and there's currently no overhead power. So this is a rendering of the interior. The vestibules and the restrooms are going to be fully wheelchair accessible. I think it will look totally different to somebody who's used to riding the Amtrak, which I do quite a bit. The underpinnings of the train set is actually based on a train set we built for the Austrian National Railways, the Diageo Comfort, which had a ton of success in Europe. And then we have spent the last couple of years working with Amtrak, tweaking things to really dial this design in for the needs of Amtrak riders. The windows are fantastic. I think it'll be a totally different interior experience. The cladding is much brighter. The amphitheaters are really kind of cavernous. I think this is going to allow people to enjoy the landscape, let in a ton of light. Digital information displays are finally coming. I think a lot of Americans kind of maybe assume that digital information displays are for transit. It might seem kind of weird to see one in an intercity train, but it's a standard everywhere else in the world, and so I think it's a relatively small change, but I think it's going to make a big difference for how people perceive rail travel. It was exciting hearing about Amtrak's record year in 2024, and when I think about the amount of change and honestly improvement that's coming for the passenger experience on Amtrak, it's really exciting to think about getting a record year with equipment that's 40 or 50 years old, kind of what's going to be possible. I think the introduction of these train sets over the next couple of years could mark a real turning point for passenger rail in the U.S. So I want to talk a little bit about Brightline West. It's happening a couple thousand miles away, but there are some exciting implications for New York State. So our partner Brightline is developing the U.S.'s first true high-speed rail line between Las Vegas and the Los Angeles area. We think this is a fantastic place to build high-speed rail because the advantage over driving is so dramatic. So there's basically only one highway that connects Las Vegas and LA. It's pretty much congested all the time. Your best case scenario, in the middle of the night, it's a 4-hour drive. A lot of the time it's 5, 6, 7 hours. And the train ride is going to be less than 2 hours. And so we think a lot of people are going to choose to ride the train. And I love this rendering of the train running alongside the highway. I think the best advertisement is going to be sitting in traffic and watching that train fly past at 200 miles per hour. So we have established our manufacturing site for the rolling stock for the Brightline West project in Port Heads, New York. We are investing $60 million to build a 300,000 square foot facility that will employ 300 people, and we're trying to move quickly. We're opening that facility in 2026, and we'll have the first train rolling out of that facility in 2027. So why did we land on Port Heads? Well, a lot of it had to do with speed, and not just talking about the trains. Brightline wants to start operations in 2028. We have this aggressive timeline for getting the facility open, and so we needed to find a place that had a lot of those building blocks already in place. And so the southern tier met a lot of those criteria. There's this existing talent base, maybe more so than anywhere else in the country, of rail manufacturing expertise. And so I'm going to talk about workforce development on the next slide, but having that existing ecosystem makes those investments in the workforce go that much further, and it allows us to get up to speed much more quickly. We also were able to identify a site that is on the rail network, had environmental permitting work done, had a concrete pad already poured, so certainly not starting from scratch. We just opened a new facility in Lexington, North Carolina. For that facility, we basically had to build out roads and bridges to the site, and it took a couple of years, but we think this site we identified in Horseheads is going to let us get started much more quickly. So, like I said, we certainly were drawn to the southern tier because of the existing workforce, but we plan on making investments to grow that workforce, to augment that, and to support institutions in the community that are carrying out that workforce development work that we know is really important for our long-term success in the region. We have a lot of experience doing this, so at our other sites in Sacramento, our major rolling stock manufacturing site, we have extensive partnerships with trade schools and community colleges, and have had just built a really great pipeline that I think has allowed the economy to grow more broadly there as well. We're doing the same thing in Lexington, North Carolina for our new plant there. And we're doing the same thing in Horseheads and in the southern tier, looking for partners to grow that workforce. We know that we can only succeed to the degree that we partner and find those good local partners who will make those investments go even further. So it's something we're looking forward to. I think our recruiting for welding gives you an idea of the scale of the kind of effort that we've had to undertake. So we're now hiring 150 welders a year across our sites. And so if you're taking in 150 welders a year, you have to build out a pretty extensive onboarding program. So we have people coming out of trade school, we have experienced welders with 20 years of experience, and our onboarding program, it can be anywhere from a couple weeks to 4, 5, 6 months long for somebody who's coming with no prior experience. If somebody has that longer experience as a welder, it's more about bringing them onto our systems, teaching them about specific requirements for the rail industry. But we have been honing this expertise, and we think it's gonna help us get off the ground quickly in Horseheads. So Steve asked me to just offer a few thoughts about Brightline, Florida. I actually used to work there, and Brightline in some ways reflects a unique situation in Florida, a unique set of circumstances. But I think there are also some lessons that are useful more broadly for passenger rail across the country, because Brightline has had a lot of success. So the first one is that they have had a very long-term vision in terms of planning. So they started thinking about this system back in 2012. You can see Siemens first partnered with them in 2014. But they're planning in terms of operations, negotiating for slots with the freight railroad. They're planning in terms of infrastructure that they could grow into has been really effective. So one of the best examples of this is that they actually have planned the system for up to 10 car train sets, which is it's a pretty ambitious vision of how much ridership they think they can get in Florida, right? And that's assuming already 16 slots in each direction. And so, of course, when they were building the system, there was a lot of pressure, I'm sure, to value engineer those stations, probably shorten those platforms. But this was something they really were committed to, and it allowed them to start with 4-car trains for the last couple of years. They're now up to 5-car trains. This year they're extending to 7-car trains, and they still have that headroom to grow, even though they probably are constrained. The shared right-of-way is probably close to capacity at hourly, but because they planned ahead for those platform lengths, they have that ability to grow. The second thing is that they tuned their investments in the track infrastructure towards the goal of being about as fast as driving. So Brightline, they have a short stretch of dedicated right-of-way, so you can go 125 miles per hour on that stretch. They have the shared freight right-of-way where they can go 110 miles per hour, but their average speed is about 65 miles per hour, which is pretty close to the Northeast Corridor, and it's faster than driving almost all the time. And so they are going to draw 4 million riders this year, which I think is pretty extraordinary in a car-centric place like Florida, that they're able to achieve that kind of ridership. And to me, the takeaway is there's no innate opposition to riding trains written into the American psyche, right? This is a decision that people make, and they weigh travel times, they weigh costs, and if you're able to be over that threshold, it can make a big difference. And the last thing is their kind of guest experience commitment. You know, if you ride it, you'll probably see that they pay a lot of attention. They have people from the hospitality industry. They're thinking about this a lot. But I like their kind of mantra that drives a lot of that. They have this attitude that you only get one chance to convince a Floridian to get out of their car and ride the train. And so I think that's probably true, and it leads to a culture that every time somebody gives Brightline a try, you need to nail it. You know, you can't afford to mess it up. And so I think that has been a factor in their success as well. That's all I have, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Lucas. Okay, your name was first.
All right.
First I saw anyway.
I actually wrote down questions. First off, after the Brightline West order is done, could the Horseheads facility be used for the Amtrak era construction? That was my first thought. Second is more of a
Two
comment.
questions.
I'm concerned about the length of the consists. I wish Amtrak would consider dual modes like we have now. And another thing I'd like to see you guys do is partner with Corning Community College, which that's the community college area. Spoiler, I lived in Elmira for 2 years. And to partner with the Elmira Chemung Transportation Council to get it so that you can actually take C-Tran, which is the Elmira bus system, to the new facility.
Well, on the last point, I agree that would be great. Let me see, I'll kind of work my way backwards. I was in Elmira a couple weeks ago and I actually met some people from Corning Community College, and so they're at the top of our list for partnering to make sure that we nail this workforce development issue. What was your first question?
It was regarding having the facility transition, let's say once
Yes.
right
Oh, yeah.
orders
Yeah. So
have the Amtrak era order built there as well, so that the order can be finished that much sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are just opening a new rolling stock facility in Lexington, North Carolina. Right now we do everything in Sacramento, and Sacramento is way over capacity. It's hectic in there right now. They're going as fast as they can. When Lexington ramps up over this next year, it will allow the production rate for the arrows to come up. Once the first set is handed over to Amtrak later this year, they complete testing, then we'll be able to kind of ramp up production. We are already seeing interest from Brightline West for additional train sets beyond the initial order. So we also are looking at high-speed rail projects across the country that could keep that factory going for quite a while. So we'll see. I mean, who knows kind of what the future holds.
Thank you.
Mark? MJ?
Yes, Andrew Sable, I appreciate you being in the southern tier. My great-grandparents had a farm in Ohio Heights, so yeah, great here. But more than part of the state. I had this question this is before they had the extension program. And it's a very nice drive. The only downside is the rail is the seat comfort, I thought, was inferior to, let's say, also, it seems to be very early, very bright in the coaches, so as opposed to horses. That's my conclusion. Comments on the West Coast way, and I know Victorville is going to run to Victorville. Well, is there going to be any ability to say somehow in the future in the trains in the Union stations we have one seat ride, Los Angeles to Las Vegas, instead of change in the car award?
So on the last point, I think that would be, I agree, that would be fantastic. The trains to go all the way to the Union Station. I know they're planning to partner with Metrolink on a coordinated, I don't know if it's a cross-platform transfer, but certainly a time transfer to make that really easy. You know, the seat design for the arrows, I know that Amtrak has spent time thinking about this. They have venture cars that are have been running in the Midwest and in California for a couple of years, and so I think they have taken feedback and input on how riders are experiencing those cars, and hope that the design will address all of those, all that input from riders. I know that Amtrak is planning to, you know, we're handing over the first set later this year. They're planning to debut the arrows in 2026, and there'll be a more comprehensive reveal of what the arrow interior looks like at some point over the next year.
Mark, that plays right into my question. Now I saw the one kilometers, what combination of double quad seating in these cars?
Yes, that's what it'll look like. It'll be 2-1 in the business coaches. Business class coaches. Thanks.
Yes, several things. First, having had the pleasure of visiting Austria, I have ridden under the ideal comfort, which brings me to one point. I know one of the biggest complaints, especially with the Midwest ventures, I won't go talking about the San Joaquin ventures, but their food dealers, has been a lack of seating in the cafe cars. Is there a plan to rectify that? Because I belong to several fan groups, and literally every fourth complaint is there's no seating in the venture cafe cars.
Yeah, so the renderings that have been revealed, I think, are all that I'm able to talk about in terms of the interior layout, because we have been working with Amtrak to dial that in over the last couple of years.
Because all I've seen are coaching business, that's like, I hope they realize it, you know, it says they are running cafe cars in the train system, but it's like, you know, based on what I'm hearing out of the Midwest, it's like,
Yeah.
somebody puts some tables in there.
Yeah, so there will be like I said, a more comprehensive reveal of what the interior looks like over the next year, and I think you'll be able to, maybe you can ask Margaret if she knows anything about it.
We got your comfort trains that say have a full dining car, but, you know, obviously, no one wants full, you know, most people in the US aren't gonna, don't do full dining cars on, let's say, you know, 4-hour train.
Right, I understand, yeah.
Next question. Right here.
These 8-car trains, the ladies get 16 cars, two locomotives.
Yeah, so you can insert additional coaches up to 10. And then I'm not sure what the technical constraints are at that point. If you can also couple sets maybe to get even higher capacity, but they are semi-permanently coupled sets, but they certainly can be expanded as Amtrak wants to reallocate capacity.
In light of recent events, is that still going to be on time and production will be local after if things keep on staying the current course?
Sure. So as of right now, everything is on track in terms of the timeline that I laid out. Brightline, our customer, just finalized a sale, $2.5 billion sale of bonds. They're finishing their financing over the next couple months, and so for them, they're full steam ahead, lining up that last bit of their financing, and so. Like I said, the conversations with them are more about, can we grow the order rather than trying to figure out any delays or anything like that.
Can you check their other European manufacturers? They have shown that there have been demand. Make sure that's alternative compliance. From certain like a lot of retail operators. First, so there been any instructions
Yeah, obviously, we're fortunate to have a really broad portfolio overseas, and that's always an option that we can look at. If there's the right alignment with customer interest and regulatory concerns. It's hard to say exactly what that looks like, but we're always looking at whether that's an option.
All the way in the back.
The interior was pictured without the grubby shrub-like curtains that I rode next to on my trip to Schenectady yesterday. And furthermore, it didn't appear that there was even room for curtains, that is, I guess, to make the corridor wider than the seats are close to the window.
Yeah,
Does this reflect the possibility that Amtrak will cease putting curtains in?
I would direct curtain questions to Margaret. I'm not familiar. I actually am not sure about the curtain possibility, but I do have a pet feature of the arrows that I am especially excited about. I forgot to mention. If you have ever tried to fill a water bottle on an Amtrak, it is a disaster. I mean, it's in a recessed part of the wall. It's designed for tiny paper cups, and inevitably there's water streaming down the wall. There's a power outlet right underneath it. So we will have a true water bottle filler that fits an entire bottle that is chilled and filtered. So every time I fill my water bottle, I'm like, I can't wait for the arrows. Yes.
How many states contribute to the components for Siemens Mobility? That's roughly. I mean,
so
you got to have places coming out.
Yeah, I know we have 2,000 suppliers total across the U.S.
Okay.
I think the number I remember for the arrows is that we have 31 states with suppliers for the arrows.
The other thing is, I have a cousin that's taken the Brightline from Orlando to Fort Lauderdale. She says it's great. She says the cheap flight to Syracuse to Orlando, get to walk onto the train and nice and comfy. So
it's really nice. Yeah, I would recommend trying it. You can fly right into Orlando.
with the exception of when people disregard the gates.
Okay, one more question, so pick one more.
I'll go down here.
Can you talk about the possibility of any of the Muriel Plus train sets finding a role anywhere in this? These are the ones that are powered by hybrid. I know Canadian railroads are experimenting with hybrid.
Yeah, I don't have anything to kind of comment on. Like I said, we look at things we have overseas and what our customers are asking for here in general, but yeah, nothing to share at this time.
I'll just do one comment just to get onto, I think, what Andrew said over there. I did ride Brightline from Miami up to Orlando last year. I took one way in regular coach, and I did the return in premium. I didn't want to do reverse because I wanted to make sure the second was better than the first. And I must say, the onboard service was great, but I obviously had too much ice cream.
We need more cream,
I did think the seats were a little bit tight. I understand there is reason to have wheelchair accessible, but I did find for the distance I went on for a couple of hours, it was fine. But to tell you the truth, I can't imagine those seats going from New York to Buffalo, New York to Montreal. I mean, I don't know. My only comment would be green.
We can look at the menu too.
Okay, thank you very much.